Hey guys, Michael the DC Multiverse Collector here, really excited to be bringing you this review of the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Gold Label Red Tornado. Now, this is a gold label because it is exclusive to Target in the United States. Here in Australia, it's widely available online, and a big thank you to Head Start Toys for providing me with this sample for review. Now, Red Tornado here looks pretty great. I've got to say, first impression is positive. The red and the gold really pop, and I can see he comes with this wind accessory, which is a fairly interesting and novel accessory. I think it's reused from the Cyclone figure we got from the Black Adam movie, but you don't see it very often, and it's sort of a fun display piece, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that fits with the figure. Red Tornado, not one of my favourite DC characters. I've seen him pop up in the cartoons, in the animation, and also in the major crossover events he plays a role, but his background has always been a little bit murky to me. I've never really understood much about him other than he's sort of an android that can create whirlwinds, you know. He's not one of my sort of most familiar characters, so I'm really interested into looking into this character a little bit more. We turn the package around, we see that Red Tornado is just designated as DC Classic, which seems to be the description that McFarlane gives the figures that don't really have a direct source material. It's sort of, when he does something that looks vaguely classic or traditional, he just says DC Classic, so that's interesting. And on the back, we have really nice art of Red Tornado, looking fantastic. There are some differences if you look at this art as compared to the figure, but that's par for the course for McFarlane. So without any further ado, let's crack Red Tornado open and see what we get in the box. So here's Red Tornado out of the box with all the accessories that you get, and it's a fairly decent spread. Let's start with the boring stuff. We get the DC Multiverse display stand, thin, basic, boring, but I'm glad we get it. We also get a trading card, the same great art from the back of the box, and here's the data file on the back. You can pause that if you want to have a read about the convoluted backstory of the Red Tornado. Now, in terms of actual accessories, we do get alternate hands, which I'm a big fan of. You'll see that he is equipped in the box with fists, but he also gets some very nice gesture hands. Love to see that. We don't always get them, but McFarlane is getting better with those, and I will attach those to the figure later so you can see how they look, but I'm glad to get them. The most interesting accessory, of course, is this, well, Red Tornado effect. Now, it's cast in sort of a translucent plastic. It's just a solid red translucent plastic piece. You'll see there is a peg in the bottom for you to stick his foot in, and it's basically a stand that you can pose Red Tornado in as if a tornado is swirling around his feet, and I really love this. This is not the first time we've seen this effect. This effect accessory has come with the Cyclone figure from the Black Adam movie. I think this looks really good though, and it's fitting for the figure, so kudos to McFarlane for recognizing a very clever reuse opportunity here and taking it. This is the sort of reuse that, you know, you like to see in the line. Sensible, smart, appropriate, and it kind of completes this character, gives him something to make him more dynamic. So big fan of this. I'll show you what it looks like with the figure attached later in the video. Coming now to the Red Tornado figure himself, and this is a really interesting figure in a number of ways. So right off the bat, this is a reuse of the Alan Scott Green Lantern Collector Edition figure. Now that Collector Edition figure had a markup, a price markup, and here we are getting it as just a regular release, albeit a gold label, at the standard price. So, you know, a few additional accessories aside, there's not much difference between this and the Green Lantern Alan Scott, so why did we pay more for that figure? The answer is so they could reuse the mold on another figure, and there you go. So this is a really interesting one because it's reuse, but it's not like total reuse. So, you know, I'll do a comparison between the figures later, but from what I can tell, this is all the Alan Scott Green Lantern figure, pretty much from top to bottom, except a new head and new boots. That's basically it. Now, the new boots is really interesting because that's not something we actually see from McFarlane a lot of the time. What McFarlane usually does when he reuses a body is that we get a new head, potentially some new hands, but the legs are usually complete reuse. So you'll often see this with the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold Body Buck that have sort of sculpted boots. You will see that McFarlane simply paints over those boots instead of putting on a new part on the lower leg. You see this often with Superman as well. We get that infected Superman body buck, and instead of attaching a new piece, he simply just paints over those boots. So why has he done it here? I mean, I like it. I love that we're getting this unique lower boot part, but why is it happening here and nowhere else? It's really fascinating to me. I'd love if someone could explain to me, why it's easier to do this in this instance. Is this just a separate piece that's wrapped around the leg? No, it's not, because this is all one piece here. Anyway, really interesting how every now and then McFarlane will do some sensible reuse like this. Really odd. But then there are other things that are questionable, like the diaper piece here has the belt buckle. Now, I don't think I've seen any depiction of Red Tornado who has a belt buckle, certainly a gold strip around his waist as part of the design, but never like a big buckle like that. So why can we get unique lower legs, but not a unique diaper piece that omits the buckle? Anyway, that's just some interesting observations. We'll do some comparisons later, but let's actually look at the figure we get. I think overall, this is a really good looking figure. I think the colours are bang on. The shade of red that McFarlane's gone with is really bright, like ketchup red, but it sort of fits all the source material that I've ever seen of Red Tornado perfectly, and I think the gold is great. The paint applications are really clean on the chest here, and you'll see that his head has that arrow painted on it, the iconic Red Tornado head arrow. It looks really good. The lines are crisp, it's clean, it runs all the way to the back of the head, and you'll see that the paint is also really sharp on the legs. Really good application straight down and on the arms as well, and obviously on the chest, and that paint line is maintained even when you use the diaphragm cut. So that's really good stuff, like really, really clean paintwork. Really love that. Love the choice of gold. I think it really, really pops. What else do I like? I really like how you've got this big primary blue cape, which is perfect for Red Tornado, but McFarlane has bothered to put red paint to sort of give you that line, which matches the look from the comics, but it also just completes the figure. So I really, really like that. And you'll see that these pieces here, whether they're painted or molded in gold, I suspect they're painted, look really great. They don't look like that pearlescent gold plastic to me. That looks like paint. And I don't know why we don't see more of that. Paint. It looks so much better. I like the wide eyes, and I like that sort of shadowing. It's hard to pick up in this lighting, but you can see he's got some dark shadowing under his eyes that really give him sort of a sense of, I don't know, emotion, mood, and the lips have been painted nicely. One thing I will say is, having used the Alan Scott body, you kind of get all these crease lines throughout the suit here, and what I'm wondering if anyone else agrees with is, do you think this makes him look more organic than Android? To me, this kind of looks like a guy wearing a suit more than a cybernetic creature or like an android. I think that's probably my biggest complaint with the figure. I mean, it's really sensible reuse in so many ways, but like I've just never thought of Red Tornado as wearing fabric, I guess. Like, to me, he's just like metal. So that is something I would say, is a little bit strange. These creases here in the upper torso, and especially in the diaper piece, just make him look a little bit like a person in spandex. So I wish they'd maybe replace this diaper piece with a different diaper piece that had like a texture on it, or more, like, a bit more robotic looking. No belt buckle, because that belt buckle just doesn't seem accurate to me. The other big questionable thing are these sort of clasps that clasp his cloak on. So the cloak is the Alan Scott cloak, and it actually looks perfect for Red Tornado, except for these big clasps here. Can someone let me know in the comments, has Red Tornado ever been depicted with these sort of clasps on there? I don't think so. Any art I've ever seen of Red Tornado simply has a clean look where the cloak sort of just attaches at the front without these big buckles. Maybe a little gold band is fine, but those, I think that Todd should have removed those or resculpted that, and I don't know why that would have been too much hard work, whereas the new boots aren't. Another thing to note, if you look at these ankles, you'll see that the stripe of paint from the top of the boot to the toe actually continues through the ankle joint. Now, that's really nice, and it completes the look and it looks really good. What's interesting is that the collector edition Wonder Woman actually had a white stripe here that wasn't painted on the ankle joint. So it's really weird that we're getting this in the Red Tornado figure, but not in the collector edition Wonder Woman figure. But look, overall, fine looking figure. We've seen much of this figure before, but the body was so good with Alan Scott and I liked it so much that I'm sort of happy to see it again. I think one of the giveaways is this sort of collar piece, the way it sort of folds in here. I wish it was a bit more splayed out like that. I wonder if you heated it up, you could kind of maybe remold it a little bit to get it to sit like that. I doubt it though. It's a very strong sculpt, which probably means that you wouldn't want to pose this guy near Alan Scott. You'd want to keep him away because otherwise the similarities, I think, would be a little bit galling and it wouldn't look so great. In terms of his articulation, Red Tornado is everything you'd expect. So starting at the head, 360 degree rotation, rock to the left, rock to the right. He can tilt his head down that much, and he can look up a really good amount. So that's really good. At the diaphragm, he can rotate 360 degrees, and the same at the waist with no trouble. And it's on a ball joint, so you get a bit of left and right rock, which is really, really, really nice. Average crunch forward, and quite good arching back, and that paint line is maintained, which looks really, really good. At the arms, T-pose, shoulder rotation, and bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows, look fine, and the swivel and a hinge on the standard McFarlane ball joint for the wrist, so that's fine. Legs, can do the splits, can kick out easily over 90 degrees, and back. And you'll see that because of this rubber diaper, he has really, really good arse continuity. I give him an arse continuity rating of 9 out of 10. No swivel at the thigh, there's no cut, there's no boot swivel either, even though it looks like there should be, there is not. You do get double jointed knees that work really well, and the standard McFarlane foot rotation, and a rocker, up, down, and at the toe. Oh, this is really stiff. Okay, this toe piece is really, really stiff, and I'm wondering whether it's like fused by the paint. Let me try the other one. Yeah, there you go, the other one works. This one does not, and I do not want to force it, so I'm going to leave that one alone. It's modern McFarlane articulation, sort of, I'll call it second generation McFarlane articulation. Works really, really well. It'll do everything you want it to do, and I have no complaints really at all. Let's move on to some comparisons. So the first figure we're going to compare against is the Alan Scott Green Lantern. Now this was a collector edition figure with a premium price tag. It came with a card stand that nobody wanted, plus a few additional accessories. But as you can see, these two figures are largely exactly the same. And I would say that the Whirlwind accessory that comes with Red Tornado actually elevates this figure in terms of the accessories. So it's a real conundrum as to why one figure was a collector edition and one was not. And nothing that's happened in the collector edition subline to date has really clarified what makes a collector edition special. So the mystery is ongoing. But as you can see, Red Tornado is a straight up reuse from top to bottom, but with some really smart changes, particularly in those pirate boots that Red Tornado's wearing. They are unique, which I really, really like, and they've changed to the part where it needed to be changed, which is what you should do when you reuse body molds. You keep as much as you can, cost cut, leverage that mold, leverage the tooling, but when you need to change something to suit the design of the character that you're trying to build, you give them a unique part, and that's what he's done for Red Tornado's boots, and thank goodness he did. You will also notice, however, that the diaper is the same, and the buckle simply sort of doesn't match Red Tornado, and I wish they'd done something about that. You will also see those clasps for the cloak really don't belong on Red Tornado, and honestly, I think that is the one thing throwing the design of this figure off. If you remove those clasps, I think he would pretty much look perfect. Those clasps really make me think of Alan Scott, and so I don't think you can have these two on the shelf near each other because the resemblance is just too similar. And when you look at sort of the contours of the cape, it just looks a little bit uncanny how similar they look. Having said all that, I think this is one of the better reuses in recent memory, and I think it was very, very smart of McFarlane to do this, but there they are next to each other. Both great looking figures. I think you just keep one in your Justice Society display and the other one in your Justice League display, and you'll be fine. And here is Red Tornado alongside the Justice League. Now you'll note this is not the full Justice League. I'm going to call this the Suicide Squad game Justice League because these are the 5 Justice League members that actually, appear in Suicide Squad. We've got Green Lantern John Stewart, Barry Allen Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. And I think Red Tornado looks really terrific with a modern Justice League. Of course, you could fit him into a Justice Society display, but as I said before, you wouldn't want to keep him anywhere near the Alan Scott Green Lantern because that's just going to be too uncanny and too similar. Now, one thing you will notice when you look at this figure alongside the other Justice League's members is that he has that paint line running down his ankle joint and Wonder Woman does not. You'll see that the white stripe on her boot is interrupted, whereas Red Tornado's is not. So again, that's a collector edition figure and this is a standard release. Where's the love for Wonder Woman's boots? Anyway, I love that figure. I just thought that was really, really interesting. I think it's really instrumental to compare to Jon Stewart and particularly that Action Comics 1000 Superman. Look how much better the new ankle joints are, the sculpted ankle joints compared to those hideous ball joints we were getting in the first year of the line. You can really see how this line has improved and developed, and yeah, I think Red Tornado looks fantastic. So in case you couldn't tell, overall I think Red Tornado is an absolute winner. Even though this is a reuse of the Green Lantern Alan Scott body, I think it's a really smart reuse. The gold and red and blue colour scheme really pops on the shelf, and I like the accessories. The extra hands are great, but particularly that wind effect really gives Red Tornado some presence on the shelf, elevates him a little higher than the other figures, and gives him a point of difference. The head sculpt's perfect, the gold paint is really clean and bright. Overall, there's not much to complain about. I think my biggest complaint is probably the belt and the fact that, you know, he doesn't really look like an android. He looks more like a guy in spandex. It's a minor quibble, and your mileage may vary. Some may think that this is a great look for Red Tornado. I think something a little bit more angular would have really tickled my fancy a bit more, but you know, that's nitpicking. This is a great figure, and I think if you have an interest in expanding your Justice League or your Justice Society of America displays, you cannot go wrong with this figure. So that's all from me. If you found this video entertaining, interesting, insightful, or helpful, why not give it a like? And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. All you have to do is click, and it's a small click for you, but it really helps out my channel and supports me. Until next time, guys, happy collecting, and as always, thank you so much for watching.